most investors do not file their taxes on April the 15th. You know what most of us do on April the 15th? We file extensions. And the reason why we file extensions is because your CPA is going to do a much better job of getting you the maximum deductions that you can get if they can look at your tax matters from April 16th to October 15th. But the vast majority of people out there, when do they file their taxes? April 15th. And when do most CPAs get the information that they need to file the person's taxes? April 14th. Yeah, that's right. But isn't it true that a lot of the stuff you need to file your taxes you don't even get until the middle of February? So you stop and think about it. If you're filing your taxes with 90% of the rest of the world, or rest of the US, and you got your information in February, right? So that's February to March, March to April. That's like 2 months to figure out how to get all the stuff done for your taxes. That's really, really, really stressful for everybody. But the IRS says you can take all the way up until October the 15th to file your taxes. So guess what the rest of us do who have the liberty to do that? Wait till the 15th. Now, if you're due a refund, I can see why you want to go ahead and get that in by April the 15th. But guess what kind of people get refunds from the IRS? People who enjoy loaning money to the government free. Well, I can tell you this much, that's not me. So I structure my tax situation by working with my CPA in such a way that I owe the least amount of taxes possible. Now, my circumstance is a little unique, and if you don't mind me sharing it with you, right? I should have asked my wife first, but she's not here, so I'll go share it with. So we own some real estate. And I'm not one of these gurus going to stand up here and say, oh, I own all this real estate. That hogwash. You don't need to own a lot of real estate. I own some real estate. One particular piece of real estate that I own was a historic apartment building. In fact, those are the pictures up there on the wall. You can see the before and after. That's the one when you guys came in this morning and you sat in the room and you heard about the St. Clair. That's the one I named after my wife. And by the way, guys, if you ever name a building after your wife or your girlfriend or somebody or your mother, especially your mother, make sure you fix it up before you put the name on it. All right? You want the after picture to have your wife, right? So we bought this apartment building, fixed it up. It took us a number of years to fix it up. And because it was in a historic area and because we did the proper paperwork, we are entitled to tax credits. Now, these are what are called historic tax credits. There's all kinds of tax credits, but we're entitled to historic tax credits. The historic tax credits for this particular property is it's a historic tax credit. It's a 1-for-1 deduction, which means if the IRS, the Interior Department does the final approval, which is the phase that we're in now, and issues that certificate, then that's a dollar-for-dollar deduction from our federal taxes. And you know your state taxes are basically done based on your federal taxes. So it's not just federal, it's also state and local. So this particular year, I'm not going to file until October because I still have a little bit of remedial work left. And without getting into all the technical stuff, when you go for historic tax credits, you have to file paperwork 3 times. You file paperwork at the beginning before you actually buy the building, and this is very important. Before you buy the building, you file the paperwork to say, hey, will this property qualify for tax credits? And you file that paperwork with the Interior Department. That's the U.S. federal agency that's responsible for issuing the certificate that you need that you then turn over to the IRS. So when we first bought the property, we went to the Interior Department and they said, yes, this property is of a certain age and of a certain characteristic that it will qualify for tax credits. Part 2, you then say, this is the work I'm going to do, and before you do the work, you have to get the Treasury Department, the Interior Department to approve it. We did that. Part 3, you're now finished. What do you think happens next? You take lots of pictures, fill out one more piece of paperwork, pay one more set of fees, because the government doesn't do anything with their fees, right? And you submit it and say, okay, this is what I did, may I now have my tax credits? So we did all 3 of those parts. Guess what happened? When we got to part 3, they said, you didn't quite get it just right. So So we want you to come back and do some minor alteration to the front of the building. Well, that minor alteration to the front of the building is going to cost me about $30,000. Now, Sherman, who in their right mind would spend another 30? I mean, the building's already leased up. The building's been leased up. Well, with that $30,000 that we spend to do the final, and we're now going back because I'm like, okay, are you sure if we do this, I'm going to get my tax credits? And they're like, yes, we are sure if you do it, you will get your tax credit. Okay, fine. So we're getting ready to do that last little bit of work. Once I do that last little bit of work, send in my revised third part to the Treasury Department, Interior Department. They will issue me a piece of paper that I then take to the Treasury Department that I file with my taxes that says I do not owe taxes for this amount of money. And if I've already paid my taxes or overpaid my taxes, guess what has to happen? They have to give me a refund. Now, would anybody like to guess why I'm going to spend $30,000 to do that remedial work? Because the tax credits is $285,000. Would anybody like to have the IRS send you a check? I mean, essentially, I won't pay taxes for like the next few years. How many people like that plan? All right. Is it worth spending the $30,000 to get the $280,000? Hello? So this is the kind of stuff that we do, and the information that I just shared with you is the kind of stuff you will never hear from an out-of-town guru, unless, of course, you spend $20,000 to buy their training program. But if you hang out with us and get to know who the movers and shakers are, the deal makers are, we will let you have an opportunity to look over our shoulder and ask us a boatload of questions and say, hey, how'd you do that? Because the truth of the matter is that is the only way you will ever really learn the real estate business. Unlike anything else you will do in your life, reading a book doesn't cut it. Sitting in a classroom doesn't cut it. Buying more books and tapes doesn't cut it. You learn this business one way and one way only, and that's by doing it. And if you're not putting yourself in a position to look over the shoulder of a more experienced person and ask them questions and learn from them, you will never, ever, ever learn the real estate business. I figured that out in 2003, which is why we stopped being a regular, ordinary RIA. Because most regular, ordinary RIAs, what they do is bring in out-of-town speakers to sell you more books and tapes, CDs. And after you've literally spent thousands of dollars with those guys, what do they tell you next? Go find your local real estate expert. But the single biggest mistake that most people make is they just go join another regular old RIA, in which case the cycle starts all over again. Now, within my family, within me, there's a whole lot of multiculturalism. I actually did one of these deals. I don't know why we did it, but for Christmas, everybody in my family did DNA tests. And I found out that about 35% of my background comes from Africa, and about 30% of my background comes from Europe, and about 5% of my background comes from America. Which means I can say this knowing that somewhere in my lineage, some great, great, great somebody said it. There's an old Irish saying that my father taught me when I was a wee young lad. And it goes something like this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And if you're one of those folks who's wondering, gee, should I hang out with these guys? Should I keep coming back? You don't have to. But I can tell you this much. Every single week, 3 to 4 nights a week, we have real estate investors doing deals and sharing their experiences with other members. That is the one thing. If somebody says, Sherman, what's the difference between you and everybody else? If I had to point to just one thing, I would say you could come to this building on a Monday night, a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, a Friday night, sometimes Saturday and sometimes Sunday, but at least 4 nights a week, And you will find real estate investors doing real deals and sharing what they're doing with the rest of the group. If you can find that someplace else, go join them. But if you are not finding that outside these doors, understand this, it happens every single week inside these doors. And we would love to have you as a member, and if you are a member, we would love to see you here, either absorbing information or sharing information. Because at the end of the day, that is the only way you're going to learn this real estate business. You will only learn it if somebody's willing to let you look over their shoulder, take you by the hand, and then give you the opportunity to get out there and stumble and fail and fall and get yourself back up. And if I can say, if there's one particular reason why most people fail in this business, I would say it's because they do not allow themselves the liberty to try and fail. Most people are like, if I don't get it perfect, I don't even want to try. And the only way I can get it perfect is to buy more books and tapes. And that is the complete opposite of the truth. The truth is you figure out what's that one area in the business that you want to actually, work at really, really hard. Did he actually say that? Work? You mean, Sherman, it's not just about buying books and tapes and putting them underneath my pillow and waking up a millionaire? I tried that. Somebody may have woke up a millionaire, but I didn't. But when I actually began to put the effort in, when I actually began to look over the shoulder of more experienced people than me, when I actually began to ask for help, and the help came, that's when the magic really started.